Hello and welcome to South Central, a TNM podcast where we put the South at the center.
अंग्रेज अपना लगान और न्यूज लॉन्ड्री अपना हफ्ता कभी नहीं छोड़ते. Welcome to a special episode where North and South meet to get you an outside the paywall special podcast to wrap the week and indeed the year.
Yes, so it's the final podcast of the year and it's a joint podcast. Joining me in the studio is Pooja Prasanna, the reporting head of News Minute.
Hello.
And joining us from Dehradun is Manisha Pande, the editorial director of Newslaundry. Manisha, cold there?
Very, very cold. I'm wearing the heaviest sweater I have.
Okay, and joining us in the studio is Santosh Desai, a columnist, media critic and best-selling author, and the managing director and CEO of Future Brands Limited, brand and consumer consultancy. He writes widely on contemporary Indian society and marketing with the popular weekly column City City Bang Bang in the Times of India, and his columns in the Mint, Media International and the Helka. Welcome, Mr. Desai, to the combined episode of Hafta and South Central.
Absolute pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Okay, so how do we go about this? We'll begin with the headlines, Manisha.
I just thought I'd also be introduced, but anyway, never mind. I'm Abhinandan Sekhri, founder of Newslaundry, but never mind.
Only the CEO.
Dhanya.
Is there anybody who does not know Abhinandan Sekhri who comes and listens
Nice
to
cover
Hafta?
up, I must say.
Doesn't matter. But yeah, thank you. We'll be discussing media trends, ups and downs, highs and lows of the year. And also, since we have Santosh with us, whose column I'm sure many of you read, who very insightfully and accurately analyzes, deconstructs and predicts media trends. So that's what we'll be discussing, but not before we get the headlines from Manisha. Did you vandalize any Christmas celebration, Dehradun, Manisha?
No, but
Then why do you go there?
Join
What's
some
the point
folks
of
here.
you going? Because we took care of Delhi. I don't know, in Kerala, I saw there was something which I'm hoping Dhanya kind of spent Christmas doing. But in case any of you losers were doing that, congratulations on being the fucking biggest loser on the planet. I hope you fall into a manhole one of these days. But yeah, let's get the headlines meanwhile.
On that cheerful tone, actually, the first headline is about multiple violent incidents on Christmas. There was one in Assam where members of Bajrang Dal barged into a school, destroyed Christmas decorations. Then in Jabalpur, a visually impaired woman attending a Christmas lunch was assaulted by BJP leader who accused her of conversion. Hindutva mob vandalized Christmas decorations at a shopping mall in Raipur. In Chhattisgarh, clashes broke out between two groups of Christmas carol singers in Kerala. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Narendra Modi joined Christmas celebrations at the Cathedral Church of the Redemption in New Delhi. The Delhi High Court on Tuesday suspended the life sentence of expelled BJP leader Kuldeep Singh Sengar while his appeal in the Unnao rape case is pending. The ruling Bharatiya Janata Party has become the top recipient of political donations in 2024-25, collecting more than 6,000 crore. This is 12 times more than what its major rival, the Indian National Congress, received, which was 517 crore. After the backlash against the new definition of the Aravalis, the Union Environment Ministry directed states not to grant new mining leases in the Aravali Hills amid criticism about redefining the mountain range. However, this isn't anything new. The judgment itself had said that there'll be no new mining leases granted till there's a body that comes to a decision on how it would be carried out.
In fact, there's a
So
spurt.
it's reiterating the judgment.
There's a spurt of these influencers kind of justifying or pushing back against the outrage, which I'm sure is paid for because it's no coincidence.
Actually, on the internet, they just can't overtake because the anti-judgment reels and everything are way more organic.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll help at all paying a few influencers to say something about this because the general mood and public opinion on this is very, very one-sided, which is against the judgment. 2 people were killed in Assam's West Karbi Anglong district after clashes erupted between Karbis and non-Karbis. India recorded 14,875 free speech violations in 2025, including the killing of 8 journalists and 1 social media influencer. This is according to a report released by the Free Speech Collective. A court in Uttar Pradesh rejected the BJP government's plea to withdraw charges against the accused in the 2015 lynching of Mohammad Aklab. So that's some good news. And the judge also said that the case has to be treated as most important heard daily and ordered the government to ensure police safeguards the evidence. Congress government, meanwhile, passed the Karnataka Hate Speech and Hate Crime Prevention Bill 2025, Amid protests by the opposition, the bill proposes punishment of up to 7 years and 50,000 fine for hate crimes and extended punishment and rupees 1 lakh fine for repeat offences. Maybe we can get into this a little bit. About 95 lakh names have been excluded from the draft electoral rolls in Andaman and Nicobar, Kerala, Chhattisgarh, and Madhya Pradesh. Sri Lankan naval personnel arrested at least 12 fishermen from Tamil Nadu's coastal belt on charges of poaching in international waters, once again highlighting the persistent tensions faced by Indian fishermen in the Park Strait region. Meanwhile, the Shiv Sena faction, led by Uddhav Thackeray and Raj Thackeray's Maharashtra Navnirman Sena, announced a tie-up for the upcoming municipal elections in the state. Diplomatic relations between India and Bangladesh have hit a critical juncture, with Dhaka suspending visa and consular services. India has also suspended visa services at its Chittagong Visa Application Center following widespread violent protest triggered by the death of a prominent Bangladeshi activist Sharif Usman Hadi. Tensions further increased following the killing of Deepu Chandra Das, a 25-year-old Hindu man lynched and burnt in public on blasphemy allegations. New Delhi and Dhaka summoned each other's envoys earlier this week. US authorities have discovered more than 1 million more documents related to Jeffrey Epstein that they plan to release in the upcoming days and weeks. The news comes after the Justice Department released thousands of documents, some heavily redacted, related to their investigations into Epstein. Renowned Hindi writer, poet, and novelist Vinod Kumar Shukla died in Chhattisgarh's Raipur on Tuesday. He was 88.
Thanks, Manisha. And before we move into the discussion, just want to remind everybody we have a special year-end offer where you can get a joint subscription for up to 20% off. You can support journalism. The QR code is on your screens. It is in the link in the show notes below. So many of you have actually made sure the News Minute and Newslaundry remain ad-free and thrive, and we can do journalism without fear or favor, as we have demonstrated over the last few months and indeed years. So continue to do that. If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe. This is outside the paywall, the year-end podcast. And if you have subscribed, you can gift this as a Christmas or New Year's gift to someone, or you can convince a friend or relative to subscribe, because media, as you have observed over the last few years, is getting completely demolished because it owes allegiance to those who support it, which inevitably are governments and billionaires. With that, Santosh, before we get our friends from Bangalore to just tell us a little bit about this new bill in Kerala, you've been writing on media for as long as I can remember, because I've been reading you for the longest time. As far as brands go with social media, I remember there was a phase, the most famous being when the Daily Beast kind of shut down temporarily, and Andrew Macmillan, I'm forgetting his name, he individually raised more money than that brand Daily Beast raised for his own podcast. And for a while, it seemed that is the way forward. But then kind of brands got together, and brands again became more solid than individuals. What do you see? This is a pendulum will keep going this way, that way, or is there a consolidation of individuals into brands who will then sustain media and journalism? Because clearly the model is struggling the world over.
No, I think the move towards individual, I find that inexorable. I mean, in some form, there may be ups and downs. But fundamentally, if you look at the other stuff that is happening around us, all institutions are losing credibility in some form or the other. And you saw that in the US, when, under attack from Trump, how, media institutions you thought were solid, suddenly you found that they were, not solid at all, and they were amenable to being bullied and being blackmailed. And so therefore, I think over a period of time, the idea that institutions are fundamentally susceptible and are, to political penetration, I think that idea, is taking root. On the other hand, individuals, and in any case, in all of these, a lot of these institutions were built on the back of, individuals. But they found it worthwhile because of the economic model that, you couldn't earn money on your own. I mean, there was no organized way to do so. Today, there is a way that you can do so. You can have direct, a source of income. And the fact that, you have a brand, which is the individual brand. So to my mind, I mean, if I look at the overall movement, I would say that institutions are struggling to sort of retain credibility, to resist pressure. As against that, individuals have relatively more freedom as of now to go their own way. So I do think that my own sense is that ups and downs notwithstanding, the longer term sort of movement is towards individuals.
And I'll just correct. His name was Andrew Sullivan, not Macmillan. My
Okay.
absent-mindedness with names continues. What do you make of the southern media landscape? Because we discuss English and Hindi ad nauseum, but each state in the south, the overwhelming majority of the people are watching, whether it's Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada media. Is there some sort of, because traditionally, at least in Tamil Nadu and I think even Karnataka, most media brands are owned by political parties or their affiliates or relatives. Is that changing, you see, over the last few years and going forward with social media becoming active, or it's still dominated by political parties or their voices?
I think Dhanya will obviously be the far better person to answer this, because she has, I think, a much deeper understanding of this. But my sense is that I mean, there is the stronghold that traditional brands have. I think is somewhat stronger there than it is in the north. That is my sense. And I do think that while individual voices are rising, perhaps not to the same extent that we see that happening elsewhere in the country. But here I'll defer to Dhanya on this one.
So I think the South, every state behaves very differently. Mainstream and legacy media still holds a lot of influence on how people think, people look at issues, whether it's newspaper or television. In fact, we're trying to do a story about a television channel which is coming up in Kerala now, which is funded by a Congress leader in another state. And I'm wondering who's going to watch one more television channel in Malayalam. There are already some 10, 24-hour Malayalam channels and one more is coming. So there seems to be consumption of news heavily, but when it comes to social media, every state behaves differently. For example, Telugu, I would say, has minimal independent media online. One is Tulsi Chandu, who had come for the media rumble. There are very few names like that. There is Vanaja. There are very few people online who are doing it. Karnataka is even lesser, right?
Yeah,
there are smaller media houses like
Vartavarti,
Idina. Yeah.
But there are also individual educators, right? People who worked for decades. They have started their own YouTube channel. For me, that actually is the ray of hope in that sense. But also, if you've seen in Karnataka, though the mainstream media is heavily compromised, they don't go as far as the English and the Hindi media. Republic, even in Kannada, there is Republic Kannada. And while on larger issues they are right, they don't toe the line of BJP on everything. They're heavily critical of BJP in many ways, and they don't go after the Congress like Hindi and English channels do.
So but I think that's also an insulation, right? Because these people think that in regional languages, if we do reporting, eventually Modi and Amit Shah are not going to know. Therefore, we can do what we want.
Yeah, that too. But also it is showing of they've read the people's mood as well.
Yeah,
that you can't
true.
Just be pro-BJP.
So I think not much changes in 2025, Abhinandan. It's more or less the same newspaper. But I think there is also a realization now more than ever that certain things are not covered, like the Tirupura Kundram issue in Tamil Nadu, for example. I see there's a realization now that this media covers it like this, that media covers it like that. So there is more of polarization happening for sure. But other than that, not a big change this year, I feel.
Manisha, you've been talking about this forever through nuisance. What do you make of it?
So actually for me, what's been quite amazing to note this year is the speed at which an influencer can arrive on the scene and crash. So if you're comparing legacy media brands versus an influencer, and I'm speaking more in terms of news consumption, I'm pretty amazed by how ruthless the internet can be in making you a big brand, a person, an individual, a big brand, and then also bringing you down within 6 months. We've seen that with people like, say, Beer Biceps, who were the toast of town last year, interviewing cabinet ministers, entering into spaces that journalists traditionally had, and complete crash this year to the point that there are no views. And I myself observe a lot of people within this, influencer news content, infotainment kind of space who come with great speed and then disappear with even greater speed. So I think the ruthlessness of internet is quite something, and that is something that traditional brands, like say TOI, even if there's suspicion or if there's cynicism, the crash and burn isn't there. Times of India can still sustain itself in terms of its brand or what it can do. And I think for me this year, it's been quite interesting to note what big brands can do when they put their reporting might behind it. Like we've been talking about this. I've been telling you about this for a while now, that TOI doing 2 pages on pollution in Delhi has been fantastic for me. They've done some of the best stories on pollution. they have the wherewithal to do it. I mean, they can put 10 reporters on a beat, and they have a keen understanding, I guess, of what their readers are interested in. An urban English audience may not be interested in a lynching somewhere or attack on, somebody in Jabalpur, but they are interested in the quality of air that they're breathing. So in terms of trust and influence and setting discourse, influences are definitely there and individual brands matter, but I think there's no method to how they rise and how they fall. And I feel there's increasing skepticism among people on individual brands also. We saw that with the Curly Tails response that we've got. We did a story on Curly Tails where we explained how a company was paid 6 crore to talk up Modi government schemes. That has had, I mean, just the feedback that we are getting on that story. So many people are now curious about the influencer, the individual brand. Are they really neutral? Are they really giving us information that is correct? And this is more so for influencers in the food and health category. I think people tend to consume more of that on the internet. So I don't know. I don't think legacy can still get that kind of, I think there's still a lot of flux in the space of trust on a bigger brand versus individuals.
I just want to add something. So I was actually talking about independent media, which is journalists running YouTube channels, etc. Right? But what Manisha is talking about are influencers, and that is very high even in the southern languages. There are so many influencer-run YouTube channels, smaller establishments, which, like for example, Dharmasthala or even the Dilip Judgment. There are so many critical stories, which I think these guys gave more importance, and that is how the public got to know about it. And yeah, there is definitely going to be critical view, right? But I've realized, like when I go meet my aunt, she lives in Kochi. She lives in this old age retirement home. She constantly consumes news, but she's no longer consuming it from any news channel. She watches these YouTube channels which have daily bulletins, which have discussions. And I'm like, I'm puzzled and baffled by some of the stuff they say, but she's like, no, that's true, because it's also about consistency, I feel. And these guys also have become very consistent. People are now rolling daily bulletins. They have daily discussions. It's no longer just one video you pop and you disappear. They also have some discipline. So I think on one end, like Manisha said, there is crash and burn, but there are some of the others who are influencers who have realized that credibility is also built with consistency.
Health influencers are big, I think, across southern languages.
Yeah, same in the north.
Right? Yeah, the doctors come and they talk about different issues every day. They have another very interesting thing. They're very accessible, right? So every now and then they go into these programs as chief guests. So there is this, we've seen this guy. He's very credible. He talks very nicely. So they trust them much more. Same with, I think, Swamijis and astrologers, unfortunately. That is also a huge economy.
But as far as health is concerned, even the worldwide data says that, which Google had presented in their last conference in Delhi, which I attended, in America specifically, for Gen Z and the post-Gen Z, whatever they're called, their first engagement with news is through health columns or health articles. That is their first actually entry point, which is why a lot of these large news organizations in the West are buying out health platforms and health newspapers, etc., because that's the way they actually get Gen Z into consuming news. But Santosh, what do you make of all that you heard?
Just want to add one small thing. This is a final thing that I think organizations and institutions' ability to stand up after a scandal is stronger than an individual's ability, I think.
Yeah, I was about to come to the business side of that, but yeah, I want to just get the brand aspect.
So I think that's true. I think, by its very nature, an institution can protect itself, has, many more safety walls than an individual. An individual is much more vulnerable that way, a faster rise and faster fall. Is the nature of the beast. The organization is by virtue of having so many people and having history, having legacy, is slower to get affected than individuals. So, to me, that makes a complete sense. I think it's true. I think overall, what I find really interesting is just the phenomenon of influencers and how, influential they've become. In the sense that if you were to look at, just structurally, the idea that, knowledge came to you from pulpits, it came to you from these established, credible places. And, that the flow of knowledge in the past was always mediated, regulated, and handed down to people. And so, you were always looking up at people who were telling you stuff. To now, where you are actually looking sideways to people like you who is telling you stuff. And to my mind, that shift that has happened, again, there are issues of trust, there are issues, but at the same time, relatability versus trust. I think that is a kind of an axis on which you will see this kind of play out. The influencers are much more relatable. They use context of lives that are much more similar, that are, which feels like they are speaking of a context like mine. And so whether it comes to health, whether it comes to beauty, whether it comes to fashion, whether it comes to politics, there is a sense that, this person goes through the same kind of stuff I do. And therefore, what they are saying is more immediately applicable to my context. I mean, there is that sense. There is also the sense, of course, that it's an individual and there were vested interests. And so, but that is a given now, that I think any form of representation today that we see on the internet is suspect. And so, I mean, to me, that doesn't distinguish between legacy brands and individuals. That is a given. But I do think that this whole idea of influencers and the way knowledge is moving and the way, we are kind of responding to things is a fundamentally new way that it is moving, sideways rather than from top to down. And I think that is absolutely fascinating in terms of how that shift has happened.
I think there are two specific aspects of this. One is how much you are consumed, and two, how sustainable can you make your operation. And I think on both these, one thing that probably is not scrutinized enough purely because it's not the visible side of the media business is costs. And in that sense, a lot of the YouTube channels of former very well-known journalists, I don't want to take specific names, but they are friends of mine and Manisha's. They've come and spoken to us and told us about their struggles of how running their YouTube channel, the pluses and minuses of being in an organization, institutional protection. One is the pressure of frequency. When you're one person, it's very hard to go out and report. Like for example, Ravish doesn't go out and report anymore. It's just physically, and it's impossible for him. So that's one aspect which I think influencers can't report like organizations who have reporters can. And I'm just talking about the output here. I'll just come to the cost aspect of it. Second, the institutional protection, especially in India where the state comes after you. So fighting those cases, etc., it can be extremely stressful. For example, if Manisha's editorial head had to look at all editorial, and similarly, like Vignesh is handling or I'm handling that aspect, if they had to every day we just received another major legal notice 2-3 days ago. If you had to do that and look at what you're putting out, it can completely, it'll become unsustainable. And third, I interviewed someone last week and we'll be putting out that interview next week. He's written a book. He was the chief marketing officer of Apollo Tyres, I think between 90s or 80s, 2000s. And it's a story of how a struggling brand became the market leader in many segments of tires, the truck tires, etc. And one thing he said is a lot of businesses don't focus on costs. They just see sales kaise badhaye, profit kaise badhaye. Costs can be cut down big time. And I think what legacy media's trick they're missing is purely just the real estate costs. If you see the media city that Republic has built or that India is, you do not need real estate that size to run a media organization. With that, you can actually break it up into 500 cubicles of different people and have a larger impact. I think it is just the lethargy and momentum of legacy that this is how business is done in so much space, in such big offices, in such big studios, with so many cranes. That is actually, I think you can just cut down costs by so much to make it sustainable. So sustainability and having views are two completely different things. And as far as influence are concerned, whether it is Dhruv or Mohak Mangal or Curly Tails, one day they're going to give an explainer about how Mount Everest is growing or shrinking. One day they'll give an explainer about how electoral bonds work. One day they'll give an explainer about how there is too much sugar in your Coke. You see, it's just, you get views and then you can move into any direction. But hardcore reporting, I think, can only be done by organizations. So I think the trick to survival is how you manage your costs and how you manage your ground reporting.
Yeah, but what I would say is that I take that point, that there is a certain institutional ability to kind of handle hard news on a regular basis that cannot be matched by individuals. To that extent is true. But also this thing about the fact that today they will do a story on X and tomorrow they'll do on Y. We consume, we have to acknowledge that the consumption of news has totally changed, right? So therefore we are consuming news like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, right now on Twitter, one tweet is on something, the other is on a band, the third thing is on some film star doing something. I'm consuming news like that. I'm not consuming news in an organized way like I used to in a newspaper. The front page is all the international news and the big stuff, and the middle page is the sanctum sanctorum where editors kind of, give their gyan. We don't now, the world doesn't, there is no 9 o'clock news, which was the appointment viewing that we went for. So yes, what you are saying, I completely buy about costs, because I think it all comes from the same place. News has fundamentally changed in character. It has changed, the news landscape has changed so much, and legacy forms do not have the agility or the flexibility to adapt to it. And the worry I have is that when legacy media says, but we are relevant and we will continue to be relevant because of A, B, C, D, and E, some of those are true, but a lot of that is simply an inability to sort of come to terms with a completely new landscape.
But I think legacy media has realized the potential of having influential brands. So if you've seen India Today and News 18 to a large extent, they've tried to create these mini brands out of their reporters and anchors, and they make them do podcast-ish reportage. I mean, democratic newsroom, as they call it, it's farcical, in my opinion. But that said, that is their attempt to reach out to that kind of crowd. And also, many of their anchors have been asked to go on Instagram, talk about certain things that are softer, and they think that younger people can relate to much more.
I agree with Mr. Desai that there is so much of lack of agility in the media. They're not able to keep up with what is happening outside the legacy media or even independent media, right? I don't think we're agile enough to keep making changes. And I disagree with Abhinandan in one thing. I don't think any of these influencers are trying to be a replica of the media, or they're trying to replace us in any way. They're not bothered. They don't want to report. They don't want to do daily reporting. Their function is something else in this world. So they are not looking at, okay, I'm going to be reporting daily and putting facts out there. So many stories, right? We do. And then like electoral bonds, for example, we haven't slept for days when the bond data came. We were all looking through it. And then somebody will discover it on a Dhruv Rathi video. But the point is about distribution, right? He's not claiming to be looking at that. So I don't think they're looking at replacing us at all. But the problem is, there will come a time when people will start thinking, like with the Curly Tails story which Newslaundry did, I believe there will come a time when people will think that how much should we believe these influencers, because they are not going on facts, that they are not actually journalists, or they are not disclosing certain things to us. Therefore, that kind of a discerning viewership is what we need. And hopefully that is building up, because when I go to colleges, one question which comes in every college meet I go to is, how do we trust? What is a source that we can trust? Because even kids, college kids are so confused as to who to trust, right? So I think that discerning viewpoint will come at some juncture where people are like, this is influencer, you can take them only for this. This is a proper journalistic venture, and you must take it for this. Even, of course, let's not get into which journalistic organization to believe on what. That's the next layer.
But for me, that's again a problem. Many people expect us to compete with a Dhruv Rathi. Now, he can dramatize as much as he wants because he's not sticking to any journalistic standards that we still put on ourselves, right? We can't say things by oversimplifying it. I mean, Dhruv Rathi is just one example. Regionally, we have so many others. And they seem to be more popular because they are more dramatic, they have more effects and all of that. They're smarter, but we can't afford to do that. So we're somewhere in between. We're trying to compete for that space because we want more younger people to be politically aware, not just politics, but politically aware. But we can't just say, oh, this happened, like the thumbnails are screaming something, the content is something else. Yeah, that's, I think, a pitfall.
I think they're two separate things. Actually, Dhanya, I wasn't saying they want to replace us. I'm saying there's an inevitability to it that they can't report. I'm not saying that they want to report, because I've actually been on a panel with Mohak, and Dhruv is a good friend. They don't want to replace us. I'm saying, but there's an inevitability to some who were reporters. They can't do it. So that, and also, I don't think, at least from my point of view of Newslaundry, I think people like Dhruv or that Parmar guy, they serve a very important function. And it's always going to be the case. They actually do an explainer in a really smart way. For example, Dhruv started when he was 21 and I interviewed him. And I don't think I've ever met a smarter 21-year-old in my life. And this is, I think, in 2012 or 13 when I interviewed him first. He was the smartest kid I had ever spoken to. So he clearly has something. But the only difference in him is he acknowledges I'm not a reporter. He ascribes, this is where the source comes from. Whereas Mohak and me were on a panel together in the University of Michigan a few years ago. And he kind of saw himself as a equivalent of Shekhar Gupta. And I corrected him on the panel. I said, my personal views on Sekhri notwithstanding, he has been a reporter. He's on the ground. You base your commentary on something that someone else has done. Yours will always be secondary information. It will never be primary. And I don't think they want to do primary information, but the brilliance is how simple can you make it? Because while oversimplification is a thing, there is something to be said for simplifying a message or a complicated idea or politics for it to be consumed by a larger audience. And that is politics, and in a sense, that is news.
I think Aravali's is a great example because, if you look at the story broken by Indian Express, Jay Majumdar, but that story really takes life through influencers from Haryana and Rajasthan. Those are the guys who pick it up and then really kind of made a story people to care. So what Santosh was saying about relatability, that matters. And I think it's really sad that legacy brands with all their reporting heft, their expertise, their knowledge domain are not investing in doing what an influencer can do with their own story. But I guess it comes from the space that if something becomes too big, we can buy it. Our main business is a newspaper and advertising. And that, I think they are looking at it from the point of view of what their big business is. And to Pooja's point, brands are trying to do it, legacy brands, but the idea, there's such less thinking into understanding what works on the internet that most editors, owners think that simply putting a podcast mic in front of you is what's going to make you relatable and watchable. That's the innovation that everyone's doing. Let's put a podcast mic and do what we're doing. But that's not it. Like the way, in fact, if you look at reels and everything that work today, they're the most rough, unedited kind of reels that go viral on Aravali's, at least whatever I've seen. There's no slickness to it. It's just how you talk and make yourself relatable. And actually, also the fact that you come from a community that's impacted by it. Like in the case of Aravali's, you are from Haryana. You care about, like every other person that lives around Aravali. So there's also that relatability of this person talking about things that matter to us. But it's a big missed opportunity to my mind for legacy brands because it is often the stories that they do that viral on the internet. So the knowledge is pretty much what they have. It's just that they're unable to make it relatable or reach a wider audience.
Also, I think because they are general doofus characters. I've seen Gaurav Sawant's Gyan Pillowing on, like, dude, I'm looking at you. I'm like, dude, like, if there's dumber content and there's smarter content, you cannot be a bad version of being dumb and a bad version of being smart. No one fucking wants to see that.
Yeah, and just put a mic in front of you, a podcast mic in front of you.
There has to be something. You can't just, even their quote-unquote democratic newsroom, I feel kind of bad for Rajdeep, everyone shouting in the middle of that. And also, I personally think it was a poor copy of Hafta. Because we used to sit together when Anand Ranganathan, Madhu Trehan, Manisha, all of us used to sit together. They started that shortly after. If it wasn't, it was an original idea. It was a shit original idea. You can at least say that we tried to rip something off, it didn't work. But it's a really, dumb show. It's unfortunate. But I want to get to Santosh on how the advertising game has changed. But before that, our friends from Bangalore, could you tell us about this hate speech bill in Karnataka? What it means? What is the implication of it being passed, etc.? Any rules to follow?
I think what it is. Like, what's the definition of hate crimes and hate speech?
Yeah, so that is a bit of a sticky point, right? They are defining both hate speech and hate crime. Then they are adding hate speech under hate crime. So there's a separate definition, then hate speech comes under hate crime. See, there are lots of people who believe that such a law is very important, that hate speech has to be defined separately. But this is very, I don't know.
It's a slippery slope.
Not only that, it's too large in scope. I think, which is why lawyers also have been pushing back, saying that this is not a good example. And it has, I think, 10 years if you're a repeat offender, which is perhaps the only reason why they're trying to bring this bill, so that they don't have to follow the Arnesh Kumar guidelines and arrest people and put them in jail at least for a few days if they have done hate speech multiple times. I don't know, the Congress seems to have been saying, I've gone to many events where Congress leaders are saying that we are going to discuss this with all stakeholders, but nobody is aware of who these stakeholders are that they have spoken to. I'm sure that there will be litigations against the bill very soon. And rightfully so, it at least some of the clauses will be struck down. Yeah. I just want to add one thing, Abhinandan, and maybe Mr. Desai can add to it. I see this, you were talking about, how to run sustainability and all that, right? I think one thing which we've seen in 2025 is a lot of litigation against independent YouTubers. And one thing which stands out is the Shamira Singh versus Isha Foundation case, where Sham had put out these videos. It's a story that we also had done, but I don't want to get into how he did the story and how we have not got any case, because there's certain procedure that we go through while putting out a story, right? Anyway, he is fighting that case, but I believe that's very crucial. The fallout of that, or eventually what will happen in court, will also determine how far YouTubers will go when taking up issues, or when targeting individuals or cults or political parties. I think what the outcome of this case is going to be very important for that community.
But just a quick aside on the
ANI
hate bill.
versus Mohak Mangal also this year on copyright.
Yeah, that too is there.
I was saying that on the hate speech bill now, which has been passed, the thought came right after Congress formed the government. Because, of course, it was a Congress government that came with such a huge majority, and the guarantee schemes were targeted. There was a lot of misinformation, including by so-called mainstream media, English media. So that is when I think they realized that, okay, we need something stronger to counter this. While, yes, they were victims of misinformation, disinformation, lot of deliberate distortion of what was being done here. Congress should be used to it ideally. The way they went about it is not very different from what BJP is. It's a very knee-jerk reaction. They've spoken to people, yes, they've consulted people, but they didn't do anything to change the clauses. That's where they went wrong too. Yeah, sorry, on the other bill.
Yeah, but in fact, on that, it's consistent with, irrespective which party is in power, they phrase their acts and their bills and their laws as vague as possible to give maximum, discretion to the bureaucrat. Because the same bureaucrats drafted. I remember 66A, which, Kapil Sibal was the minister when that was introduced, which was struck down by the Supreme Court actually. But section 66A had the word annoy. If I put out something on my social, annoys somebody, it can complain to that ministry, and the minister defame that. I said, what's the point of courts? Now I want to ask Kapil Sibal, dude, if annoyance is enough, and those days he was on this poetry writing thing. If you remember, his poetry book was released by A.R. Rahman or someone, and whenever your minister basically.
A.R. Rahman cut an album
with him. Abhishek Manu Singhvi's wife had a big concert here. Now Amrita Fadnavis is the new toaster. So when you're in power, suddenly your poetry, your wife's music, everything becomes, legendary. But I said, if annoyance is reason enough, any poetry lover would put Kapil Sibal permanently in prison for the crap poetry he used to put out on Twitter, those 3-line haiku type things. It was like really haiku.
I think limericks or something he used to do.
It is the vaguest of language, is consistent with all laws framing in India to give maximum discretion on how it can be used against who. But Santosh, anything on this, please feel free to say. But my specific question to you is, as someone who has observed the advertising landscape and the media buying landscape, like I remember when I set up my production house in 99, ad agencies were so big, whether it was Lintas, whether it was what was it? McCann, Mudra, LTA, HTA, sorry, whatever it was called. Now they, I think, 10-12% operations. Prahlad Kakkar's 3 crore, 2 crore ads. Today, there are hardly any work for producers, hardly any. Media buying has completely changed. Building brands has completely changed. Those big Hathi under the waterfall, insurance companies, like one ad cost as much as a small budget film. How has media buying changed? How has building a brand through advertising changed? And how has, positioning your brand through, we will never see a Prahlad Kakkar again, I'm guessing.
Yeah, probably not. I think fundamentally what changed is the media form, right? You had aggregate media, you had media that was mass media, and therefore you had mass campaigns. And overall, as with the coming of digital, that is fragmented into so many pieces that the whole landscape has changed. So therefore, building brands now is not, you don't have the clout of television because it doesn't get the kind of viewership. You don't have that kind of confidence in the fact that if you put out your advertising message there, it will be seen widely enough, or it will be seen frequently enough because the fragmentation. So fundamentally, that is the starting point, and that has had a cascading effect of several kinds. One is that if you were to look at advertising, it barely, there was a time when advertising was a form of popular culture and it actually captured zeitgeist, and you could read what was happening in the world to look at advertising and how it was changing. Today, that is not the case because advertising has become peripheral. I mean, most of the creative energy, in a sense, if you want to get a sense of what people are thinking, how they're behaving, you go to reels. You try and sense short form video, YouTube. That gives you a much better sense of how people are thinking, what the young are doing, what are they excited by. Advertising, which used to be a form that gave you that, doesn't do that anymore. Even in terms of commercially, therefore, the money has gone to the platforms. The people who are actually making money are the Googles and Facebooks world. Because, all advertising now needs to be funneled through them. And therefore, the bulk of the control comes there. Also, the grammar of advertising has changed because it's become, title is measurable. It is, granular, because you can reach every person where he, she might be. You are able to target. So therefore, it has all become very mechanical and technical. And from, human stories and big canvas stories have all given way to these small, what is called performance marketing is really that. Reaching the person when you're scrolling, if you can give them an offer, then you will convert to buying. Because what has happened is that the market has moved to your phone. Otherwise, you saw an ad and then one day you went to the shop to buy something. And so therefore, you have to, tuck something in and make sure that the story was powerful enough for you to remember when you actually got around to shopping. Today, the two things coexist. You see something, you don't have to tell a big fancy story. You have to give them a sharp, clear, pointed message to make them do what you want them to do. So fundamentally, it has become narrow. It has become, and as a consequence, all the big agencies, etc., are in trouble. Right now, there's a major reorganization when one agency network bought up another. Lots of brands that were legacy brands, brands I grew up when I joined the profession. Most of them have fallen by the wayside. And it's not small independent operators, like you said, with 10, 12 people who have now become the new face. Independents are now, with small sort of assignments and projects. Even long-term working with clients has given way to projects, short-term projects. So it's a complete change in the advertising landscape that we've seen across the board.
But I think platforms that offer you ad-free, including ours, for a fee has, I'm sure, had a huge role because ads are no longer celebrated or seen as creative, right? There is a serious ad avoidance. You can get away without, even on YouTube, you can skip ad after whatever 15 seconds.
And what about AI? Has that impacted the industry?
AI is so both of these. I think AI is impacting, has started. See, media planning already had become automated. So it was actually machines talking to machines, right? When you buy something, it's not humans talking to humans, which is what it was when I joined the business. It is now machines talking to machine, and that's what AI is going to do. AI is going to, in fact, it is going to increasingly sort of move people towards the fact that I will have an AI agent on my phone, which will talk to an AI agent of a business. And between the two of them, they will figure out something. So that is clearly something, and which means advertising will become algorithmic, in that sense. One part of advertising will become algorithm. It becomes like an algorithm. It's not really advertising anymore. It's simply a mechanical kind of an operation that we will see. So I do think that we haven't even seen the full effects of AI play out, but it is getting, a lot of advertising is going to be impersonal. People in the industry are hoping that you will have the opposite effect also, that as more and more machines kind of start doing stuff, there will be some room for old style advertising to come back. But I think that's a fond hope. That's nostalgia more than any really concrete kind of reason to believe that. So let's see how that plays out.
But I'm going to come back to you, Santosh. So just make a mental note of this. I'm going to ask you for, 3 or 5 or 4, whatever, memorable ads that this generation wouldn't have seen, which really stay with you, which really you looked forward to watching those ads rather than skipping them. And if anybody else has that. But to that point of, Googles and everything being funneled through them, I think here, much as I dislike him for his emotionally dead brain, Elon Musk was a visionary in saying that I will form that X company that does everything. I think that is what is happening to companies because data is everything. So whether it's deploying ad revenue, whether it's deploying how your marketing budgets work, whether it's using data to backward integrate and manufacture who wants what, to predict how demand is going to move, that everything company that he had predicted is what Amazon, Apple, all these AI companies, they are everything companies. And The Economist had actually done a piece that in the US, the top 50 companies used to change every few years. The rate at which the biggest company in the world would suddenly be knocked off was really high, like from Enron to WorldCom. Those are because of scandals, but even otherwise, organically, with these big seven, the Amazon, Apple, whichever those seven are, Tesla, etc., it is highly unlikely anyone will be able to catch up with them because everything is data. So they'll become everything companies. And when that happens, I think that entire thing of expecting companies to be specialists in X, Y, Z is going to be wiped off. There'll be very small independent organizations and these 8 or 10 companies that do everything from making films to making your manufacturing to even eventually, I'm sure, digging for oil, which is also what Jio is doing. I mean, from being a petroleum company, it's going to become a data company, cellular company. Reliance will become the everything company, as will Adani. And for that, the alliance of political and industrial leadership is going to become absolute. And the counter view of that has to yet to emerge, at how you actually break that. And maybe Chomsky would have done that had he not spent all his time on Epstein Island. But yeah, sorry, Santosh, you were saying?
Well, I think that's a fair point. Actually, that's a good point. And it's interesting, actually, if you think about it, you had the old style conglomerates who you were, in some senses, everything companies. You have chaeballs in Korea, but their source of expertise was essentially capital and because they had access to capital and distribution, which is what actually made them able to do more than one thing, even in unrelated areas. Today, the commonality is data, as you've said, right? So now, if you have data capture and you are sitting on top of data, given the fact that now digital means that each form, so making a film is also a digital activity, producing news is also digital. I mean, so what digital does is it allows you to do pretty much anything. So, and now with AI coming in, it is possible to sort of, everything can get converged far more easily than it could earlier. So I do think that that's a fairly compelling kind of a vision. Compelling not in the most desirable way, but in terms of a persuasive, let me say, vision of the future, what you just laid out.
Right. Manisha, you want to come in on this before we get to which ads are memorable for Santosh and we say bye to him?
No, just what Santosh was saying about going over reels to understand the spirit of the times is so true, because this year I remember when I wanted to understand what was happening in Nepal, the Gen Z protests there, it was primarily through reels that I got a sense of what that country was feeling. Operation Sindoor, I remember the kind of reels that were coming in from Pakistan that were saying that, okay, India is saying that they've taken Karachi, take it, you'll have no electricity, you'll have no water, you'll run away. That kind of how depressed that country is and the sense of despondency in that country because their most popular leader has been in jail for about a year now. So all those kind of things that you want to understand about the country and your neighbors also, for me, this year has been through reels. But I wonder, so for ads, and Santosh is very right, why we feel so dearly towards some of those ads we've grown up is because it captured some aspect of our culture. The dairy milk ad where the woman runs across the field, it's empowering for a woman to kind of openly express her love and then, go dancing in this male dominated kind of thing. So it spoke of the culture of that time or aspirations of that time. And you can look back, right? And again, on reels, there is so much nostalgia about olden ads, like Chal Meri Luna. I was seeing recently, there was a reel about how it was an ad for women empowerment, women saying Chal Meri Luna and, going to work, doing things. 10 years from now, if I want to look back at the spirit of the current times, these reels won't really work because the frequency at which they come and go and the frequency at which things change on the internet, I wonder, for lasting understanding of this generation, what will we look back? And I wonder if all that nostalgia, do brands think though, for example, music videos went away. But then you do have certain pop stars today, like Honey Singh will invest in a music video because it's sort of now interesting to come out with one music video. So do you think brands would also see some value in building a nice kind of a story around an ad in the old school style because there is nostalgia for it and also it stays in a way that maybe reels cannot?
No, so I do think that, nostalgia is such a powerful emotion, right? And I do think that brands will try and plumb that in some form or the other. But truly, it works best when it is organic. Actually, that is, it is when it comes back, not because brands have done it, but because there are people who like it and they want to bring it back and they create, something. So I do think that the powerful kind of a way of doing this would be through through an organic kind of a playback of nostalgia. Brands actually, when they screw it up, when they try to do this, they don't do a great job of this, because they're too concerned with what their immediate needs are and their narrow needs are, and the ability to kind of just celebrate this, just the fact that people have these fond memories. I haven't seen brands do that, and I haven't seen them think about doing this so far, at least.
Pooja, Dhanya, what makes a brand memorable according to you?
No, I was just adding before that, who's watching these ads? That's also a factor, right? Most of the people who watch ads in their entirety are watching it on television, because there you don't have much of a choice to move away from it. And young people are not, I don't know the last time I actually switched on TV and watched something. And in the digital space, like, nobody's paying attention to ads to even remember. So nostalgia is kind of lost. That's perhaps why people are not even spending much on making ads. On your point of what is memorable, I was thinking Dairy Milk, of course, is one. Fevicol, though it was funny and all of that, witty Feviquick, Fevicol, all of that, they went to different parts of the country and very subtly spoke about who's attached to whom, the concept of attachment. I thought that was interesting. So that's one thing I remember.
So coincidentally, today morning, I watched a video on Barkhadat's channel, Mojo TV. I was watching this show that she had done with a journalist colleague, Rachel Chitra, on the plane crash in Gujarat. So before the video starts, there's a Franklin Templeton ad. And for a second, my brain could not register, because I was not logged into my YouTube. It was a News Minutes YouTube, where the ads are still there on the back end, right? So it was an ad. I was thinking, when was the last time I actually saw an ad? Because everywhere I've paid to not watch ads. And I don't know how nostalgia works. Like when we see some movies, right? There are lots of these Malayalam movies where they'll have old dialogues of Mohanlal in the 80s and everybody's laughing. If you take Tamil, they will be joking about old Vijay movies. And the kids now don't get it. I don't know, how long will this nostalgia thing work? I mean, I don't know what is nostalgia for this generation 10 years later.
Also, people say if you grew up in the 90s, like back in the day in 90s or 80s. So
yeah, this MTV people are on a trip, right? Putting this nostalgia reels. After a point of time, I think it's tiring. It's fun once or twice.
Hey, it was a very crucial part of our growing up. We learned.
I know, but how long? Okay, my first
Chinnappa was.
Yeah, my first ever call to a show was at Nikhil Chinnappa's show. And I was very popular in college.
And he was from Bangalore, and he was a rage in the city.
No, you told me that you called him up for that show and sent a letter also. You sent letters to him.
I actually wrote a card. You had to send cards. So I made a card. I sent it to Nikhil Chinnappa, and they select 10 people every show. And I was that person on one of the shows. Can you imagine?
And you're still dissing MTV?
I'm not dissing MTV. I think nostalgia after a point of time just puts me off. And I feel like there's no common nostalgia, right? I don't have the same. My son, I don't know, 10 years later, what is nostalgia for him? Taylor Swift?
Of course, but that's the thing about nostalgia. It's always different for different people. It's, it's time
I don't know. Do we have it? I don't see them sticking to one thing now.
I think we're perhaps the last generation to hold on to this. Vignesh and I have a lot of Bangalore nostalgia because we grew up here. Cake exhibitions or certain places, Corner House, Lakeview, all of that.
That's all still there. That's all still there.
Yeah, but it's still nostalgia.
I just think that, Pooja, you're too young to be talking like an uncle. The next generation will not know. Nostalgia is an emotion. And every generation will know that emotion. Like the generation above us said, romance to hamare time mein hota tha. There used to be romance. You guys don't know what is romance. For you, it's only sex. But every generation knows romance. Every generation knows nostalgia. It'll be different. Maybe different things will come up. And emotion will never be redundant. Every generation will feel the same. Same.
Toilet will be the nostalgia for Gen Alpha.
It may be, but Santosh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, so it will it was very weird. I remember going to Hong Kong, I think to the Disneyland there, and my two daughters at that time who were still young. For them, it was nostalgia for them. I couldn't fathom it. To me, it was like crass commercial sort of an enterprise, which was completely hollow and plastic. But they grew up. I mean, I didn't recognize to what extent, their childhood. Unfortunately, was peppered with so much Disney reference. But it was for them, it was like excavating their past, and they were like, "Oh, this and that." And it was eye-opening, to see, And so every generation, absolutely, what Abhinandan said, every generation finds people are now nostalgic about old Nokia phones.
Yeah,
right. You're nostalgic about Pac-Man. So we've already started getting nostalgic about digital stuff, right? So that's what the
BlackBerry phones.
Yeah. BlackBerry phones, exactly. So we did some work, in fact, with this new generation, Gen Alpha. And it's at one level, it is terrifying because, they process the world in a completely different way. Even as against the slightly older Gen Z, it's a different ball game. They speak differently, they process the world differently. But equally, they're when you talk to what do you want to be? I want to be a doctor. I want to be so it's very interesting how you have at one level a completely different landscape. At another level, you still have things that haven't changed because that imagination hasn't really gone forward. So that was interesting.
To ask you a question, what do you think was completely different about Gen Alpha and how they process the world? Something that you were shocked by?
I think the fact that it is, their visual world, for instance, their visual world is entirely different. It is much more fragmented, and their ability to process from very unrelated visual material into something which seems to make sense to them. I just found that the way, I guess, I am a text generation. I totally understand text, right? I don't understand, visually. I can't interpret things visually as well as these guys. I found that when they were looking at anime or when they were looking at, which is their preferred form, which is highly, so if you look at anime, it is emotionally very intense, but it is also very dark. So I just found that interesting that your 8-year-old and 10-year-old and 12-year-olds are consuming complex narratives. So the cartoon has moved from being a simplistic Tom and Jerry thing to being highly complex tales, which are, much more kind of, they're dark and they involve, themes that are so much deeper, and they effortlessly processing that. Which was eye-opening. I mean, I thought was strange.
2 or 3 ads that for you are imprinted in your mind.
Starting with, for me, it was the Bajaj ad, which is, really uncle or grandfather status, it earns me. When I say that, Hamara Bajaj, that was an ad I remember very well. The Cadbury's ad, of course, was a fabulous ad. I loved the Fevicol. I don't know if you remember the South Indian, guy in a vesti doing fishing, which I thought was, which I remember. Then there was this Center Fresh, I think, ad, which is the barber ad. I don't know if you remember that. This is about a barber, this guy who goes to a shop, wants a haircut of a certain kind, and he eats this, and hair goes like
right,
that.
Yeah.
I thought it was an amazing ad. The Thanda Matlab Coca-Cola ads that, was Amir Khan, those ads. Airtel, Har Ek Friend Zaruri Hota Hai. I mean, which was probably the last ad I remember.
For me,
after that point in time, I stopped. Sorry, you were saying.
No, for me, the death of ads is more the death of jingles. I mean, all the ads that I recall are heavily jingle dependent. Like whether it was Hawkins ki Seeti Baji with Neena Gupta, Pond's Cold Cream, Winters, here the fun's begun with Pond's Cold Cream, you've won. The jingles are dead because radio is dead.
I think you're strange. I think that the ones you have talked about a bit strange, I have to say.
I remember them verbatim.
Nirba, I would have got you. Nirba washing powder. वो सबको समझ है. Pond's के Winters here. अच्छा, that is very.
And then all the Vimal ads, only Vimal. Because those models were so good looking and classy, and sorry to sound boomer and politically incorrect. Dude, models don't look like they used to back in the Kitu Gidwani days and the Vimal models. They look really terrible today. I mean, I'm sorry to say, the Madhu Sapres and the Arjun Rampa.
You drive Malia away from the country.
Vijay Malia.
What happens, Vijay Malia?
Exactly.
Right. No, Malia also came much later. But thank you so much, Santosh, for joining us.
My pleasure. I enjoyed it.
But before you go, a recommendation that could enrich the lives of our listeners, something they could watch, read, eat, go to, experience, anything.
So in terms of reading, the couple of books that I enjoyed this year, one is The New India by Rahul Bhatia.
Mm-hmm.
Then there is The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt, who essentially talks about how the digital world is screwing up a lot when it comes to young people. And he advocates this, no devices kind of a policy for people, kids up to a certain age. So that was an interesting book. In terms of a show, I like Pluribus, which I'm sure a lot of people have talked about, which was
Yes.
which I enjoyed, and The Expanse. Well, I'm a science fiction sort of a. If you haven't seen The Expanse, 5 seasons, amazing.
Right. Thanks so much, Santosh. Have a fantastic
Pleasure.
year. Happy New Year. Merry
Thank you.
Christmas.
Happy New Year. Bye.
So, Dhanya, Pooja, you did a power trip, the emailer that goes out to subscribers on Arnab's sudden turnaround. This is something that is very interesting as this year ends. Arnab's being harsh and critical. Well, I won't say harsh, it is still very mild, but even mildly critical of the BJP. What do you make of it? Are we seeing a different trend emerge?
I want to ask one thing before we start. How many years have you worked with him?
11.
Okay. 11. I'm 8. Okay, now please, what is the question?
No, but for me, that is actually one of the biggest lows this year. Lower than even a lot of other trash that anchors have done, simply because it tells me that this man can damage this country for years, damage people's lives for years. He can stoop so low that he will defend even the worst things that this government has done. And all it takes for him to be viewed as, oh my God, this crusader is back, this is Arnab we love and all that nonsense, is just throw some lollipops at people, you know. He'll pick the softest target, go after them, and just with great, I can see the restraint. He'll say, Pradhan Mantri ji, kya kar rahe, and all of that. And people are so happy celebrating how Arnab's U-turn, without realizing this is just part of a strategy.
I want to say I don't think there's a U-turn. I think it's very strategic that there are, I mean, on one side, you know, I was thinking, look at the power of an Arnab Goswami, right? The fact that he did 2 or 3 such videos has made him the topic of discussion again. And people are happy that he's speaking up for people's issues. I was actually thinking nostalgically that what if he had used this power all along to talk about people's issues? What kind of impact he would have had? But he sort of gave away that completely. He has not been doing it for many years.
In exchange for a lot of money, I must say.
Whatever it is, but the point is, the second he goes back to that, there is so much recognition. There was even, I was watching a Malayalam news channel, had a talk show on Arnab. That is the level of discussion on the videos which Arnab has done on Aravali and Sengar and all that, right? But if you follow Republic channel, I mean, I went and checked their YouTube. The same time that they were talking about Aravali, they were taking they were supporting the BJP in the Tirupurukundram issue in Tamil Nadu. He interviewed Gurumurthy, the RSS ideologue, where Gurumurthy is saying, and Arnab himself is saying that DMK has gone against the court, that why should they ask for impeachment of this judge, taking a very clear ideological line. Then the day when I think everybody was discussing about his anger against Sengar, I went and watched one of his primetime shows was about how the demography of Bombay is changing and the population of Muslims in that city is just increasing, and he then cites a TIS survey. So I went and checked. I couldn't find a TIS survey now. There was one which was done last year, which was discredited because of the way it used data and the way it, in fact, a lot of people apparently, like a lot of researchers call it Islamophobic survey. Suddenly, out of the blue, there is a discussion on Republic, on demography and how it is changing. So I think what has happened is basically deception, where there are 3 or 4 topics which are taken up. Very good. I mean, those topics have to be taken up and those reels are going viral. And I was very curiously also looking at the social media influencers who are making these reels viral. These are the same guys, some 4 or 5 IDs are there, who are always putting Rahul Gandhi videos, who are always putting pro-Congress stuff. So I'm wondering, who are they working for now? They're the ones who made these reels very popular. See, one thing is there, Arnab is back in conversation. There is no doubt about that. But is that something which is going to make him talk about these issues? I don't think so. Like Sengar is a very emotional thing, right? The court has actually
It's also low-hanging fruit. It's not a it's a black and white issue, right? I don't know how he could have possibly defended that. I mean, given what he's done over years, he could have. But again, from what we've picked up, and we want people to go and read Power Trip and not give it all away. But the thing is, the understanding is that PMO also lets him leave some steam and then like be this powerful crusader, because they don't want that opposition space to be occupied by the Rahul Gandhis of the world. So if it's an opposition voice like Arnab, who they can control, And he even said that the real opposition is me. It's not Rahul Gandhi or any other party. I am the real opposition in all of that. So he's somebody that the government can very easily pull back when they want. So on ideological issues, there is complete adherence. He cannot deviate. And that's what Dhanya was talking about on communal issues and the like. And other things, he can just go here and there and then people will find him popular again.
But Manisha, have the other anchors changed tune also, or they are still going by what they were doing?
And I think a couple of things. One, the two main issues that he's gone at the government for, one is pollution and one is Aravali's. These issues, actually, there's a lot of popular resonance. A lot of people across ideological lines are genuinely angry about pollution and they're very happy to have BJP questioned on it. And Aravali's is also one such issue. So I think he's been very strategic in picking up these two issues because they're actually doing well. And it is precisely on the back of this that he's come back in conversation, because there are influencers who are talking about these issues, who are picking it up again to say that, look, this anchor is also saying the same thing as we are. Apart from the Congress handles, it's true that a lot of Congress handles are popularizing these clips, but that I think is because if you can project, as a political party, if you can project that the most loyal sort of Godi GV is now questioning the government, that means the government is, not strong enough. So I think Congress's handles are doing it to send the signal that the government is weak, but look, Arnab is also attacking him. So that's where that is. But I think as far as why this has happened, one, any smart news person, and I think all said and done, given the talent that we have in television, Arnab is the smartest of all of them. He does understand what works, at least in terms of audience interest. Aravali's and pollution have deep interest in people. And it is the best way to be relevant for him. And he has been very relevant over the past 1 year. We've not talked about him because people are also bored of the same Hindu-Muslim thing that he does, the same opposition bashing. How much can you get people excited about the same sort of, programming? So it's a good flip. It gets you noticed. And also it's not high stakes. You're not questioning on electoral bonds. You're not questioning electoral funding.
No, they did not even discuss the Christmas attacks. I'm just looking through the video.
I was coming to that. The Christmas attacks, which should, for me, be the story for the week. And Rajdeep, kudos to him. He really discusses. He went at them. And that vile BJP member who told that visually impaired lady that you are like this because of your past deeds. What a horrible thing to say. And has she been expelled? It's like, look at Arif, fuck the show cause. Nothing from, and PM Modi, Merry Christmas to everybody, etc. That should have been the story, dude. Raipur, the videos, and of course, today they've arrested those guys in Assam, the 4 guys who went around vandalizing a school. But
I hope in Raipur also they do it.
I don't know if any action has been taken in Raipur, but in Assam, some action has been taken. I don't know if there'll be follow-up. I wonder if this woman is going to be expelled. Then that other woman who went to a park in Delhi, councillor, who told that African guy that
She apologized.
Yeah. It was a very lame apology by them.
No, but I think there has been no discussion about this. The politics itself is missing, right? For example, Kerala is a state where we saw at least 2 to 3 instances. One is 1 or 2 schools had to cancel their Christmas celebrations because the RSS and BJP who are opposed.
Imagine in Kerala.
Yeah, and where the BJP is very actively seeking out Christian votes, and it is believed that Christian votes is helping them also on the ground. There was another instance in Palakkad, my hometown, where a group of kids, like they were 9-year to 14-year-old, they were taking out a carol, and I think they were using these, they were a musical band basically, which the instruments came from the CPIM office. It was written CPIM musical band instrument or whatever. A drunk BJP guy came and attacked them, and he broke all the musical instruments. And then the BJP went on a rant calling these young kids criminals who were drunk. Wonderful. So the parents have really turned against them, saying that, look, if you have a religious problem and you went against them also, okay, fine. But how can you call these small kids criminal elements? So there is a lot of discussion. But I don't know. I feel like people will discuss for 3-4 days. Come next elections, a lot of the Christians in Kerala think Muslims are their enemies. So my enemy's friend. Yeah. So this outrage is just very short-lived.
No, but I want to say this. If this was an attack on Muslims, I feel like it would have been covered more, because that is, again, another opportunity to polarize and consolidate Hindus. So even if Hindus are attacking Muslims, they will pick it up on these channels. World over, they are very, very mindful of the fact that attack on Christians in the Western world will not go well. And that's perhaps why nobody is talking about it. And if you remember Gujarat, much before Muslims were targeted, under Modi, or I think this is even before Modi, Christians were targeted. The anti-conversion law that came first in Gujarat, perhaps first in the country, was keeping Christian conversion into mind. Muslims became target much, much later on. So this is brewing for many years, but Modi now cannot afford to have these attacks shown to the Western world, because then it will be taken very seriously. Next time he meets the Pope, he can't hug and kiss, and with what face, or even Trump will not take it kindly, or anybody else. So that's why they want complete silence.
Forget Trump and Pope and all that. You want votes here.
That they can manage.
Yeah, you have already alienated
manage.
Muslims. Yeah. No, I don't know. That's what I think. How is the Christian community taking this?
I think that this year they were worse than any other year, because usually we have this typical Santa burning kind of stuff, which is almost comical that the Bajrang Dal and all do. But this year there were serious kind of acts of violence here.
Yeah, in Lajpat Nagar, Delhi. I mean, I would never imagine this happened in Delhi. Here.
And I was just thinking, there's this one video that's really going viral of a Mumbai church choir opening with the national anthem, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful rendition of the national anthem, and kudos to them for doing it. But do we celebrate, do we sing the national anthem before celebrating Diwali? Why is this that burden of, I think minorities also feel this burden. A church has to feel this thing that, we are patriotic. And if you see the comments in it also, like, this is too patriotism. Why do you have to be patriotic in celebrating your own festival?
Or to watch a film,
Or throwing colors at people.
You're
like,
going to
why?
watch some C-grade film, you have to stand up for the national anthem. What a dumb concept.
Now we don't have.
No, you still do.
When was the last time we went to theatre? We don't do that anymore, right?
I didn't do for coolies.
No, we don't do that anymore.
I think depends from state to state and cinema to cinema.
Really? It's still there in other states? Here it's not.
Still a thing in many...
Delhi not. Delhi
I
they don't play.
I don't know about Delhi, but it is a thing because that before Dhurandhar, those two people who didn't stand up and that the whole audience...
Possibly because it was Dhurandhar and that's the kind of crowd...
What does Dhurandhar mean? It just sounds like disaster. What Dhurandhar is what?
It's like dhuma, like bombastic.
Yeah, bombastic is Dhurandhar.
Okay.
Right, we'll get the mails which have been curated by Manisha. This time, we take our critique, suggestions and, appreciation from our subscribers very seriously. You can mail us at podcasts@newslaundry.com or you can click on the link in the show notes below. A window will open up. Please keep your feedback restricted to 150 words so we can include as many mails as possible. If you are a non-subscriber and you have any feedback to give, you can leave your abuse on Dhanya or Manisha's timeline. But if you're a subscriber, you can give us your thoughtful critique, criticism, anything through emails, which we do take seriously and entertain. Or you can email southcentral@thenewsminute.com. Links to both are in the window below. Yes, Manisha, what emails do you have for us this week?
So, Simar says, hi Hafta team, I was trying to find the last subscriber letter episode and realized it was done long ago. Could you clarify what frequency do you record these episodes at? My concern is if you do it after 3-4 months, the letters might lose their context. Keep up the great work, team. We just recorded one.
Yeah.
Last week.
We try to keep it between 4 to 6 weeks, but I'm thinking we can make it a little more frequent. And I had an idea which I'll discuss with the producers that we'll do it in 2 shifts, in the sense that rather than all of us be there, since there are 6 in-house Hafta members, we can do 3, so we don't have to wait for 6 weeks. We can do it every 3 weeks because all of us getting together, because it takes 2.5 hours. It's half a day gone. So we'll figure out a more efficient way to do it. But as of now, it's every 4 to 6 weeks, correct? Yeah.
Madan Sharma says, with reference to Narega, I think poor of this country have once again lost to corporates. With reference to governance, BJP perhaps wants to destroy things so much that any other future government can make things right. So that no future government can make things right. Nishta says, I woke up this morning to a marginally improved AQI, largely due to stronger winds dispersing pollution overnight. But the biting cold outside underscored what this temporary relief likely came at the cost of many people enduring a harsh winter night. So the rest of the city could wake up to slightly cleaner air. Relying on favorable weather to manage air quality is not only ineffective, it's ethically troubling. At COP, I spoke with colleagues working in China, and we discussed how Beijing once faced challenges similar to Delhi's: winter pollution, landlocked geography, high vehicular emissions, stubble burning in surrounding areas. Delhi needs a similarly deliberate approach. MLAs should conduct ward-level surveys to understand private vehicle dependence and address it through lower metro fares and reliable last-mile connectivity. Schools must mandate bus use and discourage single-occupancy cars. Housing societies must provide heating for security staff to prevent waste burning. I completely agree. Apparently, I left and the air really got better in Delhi. But it's at 200 still. Like last AQI Basant it was 297. So I don't know why people are celebrating.
Maybe our subscriber doesn't know as much as Kiran Bedi, the very celebrated IPS officer, because she has tweeted, "For the first time, my air purifier is healthy. Thank you." And she has tagged Bhupender Yadav, the CM of Delhi, and my government, India.
My God.
If we
Really?
collectively persevere on all fronts of policy, we will improve. I really don't know, Ms. Bedi, how you passed the IPS exam, but this sudden yesterday we saw this clean air had nothing to do with these three people you've tagged or organization. There were stronger winds. If in one day they could solve this, I really am blown away by this woman and how she is still called on panels to talk about serious issues.
Can I please plug here the investigation that we did this year and published in March about Kiran Bedi using her friends in the Delhi police force to tap her daughter's phone a few years, 2 decades ago, but it's still important. Do read the story if you haven't this year.
Yeah, the link is in the show notes.
I like how Dhanya is bagging her. Read it like a teacher.
No, I also want to say 2025 marked something for me. Like, we have put lots of stories behind paywalls, right? People who can actually afford it will ask you for PDFs.
PDF. Oh, yes.
People who can't, and they know, so many people email us saying that,
people.
yeah, I don't have a job, but I'm still a subscriber, or I'm a student, can you give me? Those people still pay that money and take.
Yeah.
But these rich people, there's this one particular
Yeah.
person I'm very angry with who asked for a PDF. So I'm just saying that thank you to all those people.
And I send the subscription link very diligently each time they ask for PDF.
So Kiran Bedi is also subscription.
Varun Das says, "Hi NL team, few observations from a regular listener. First, subscriber letters increasingly reflect despair about India and the world. I find it surprising given that by almost every measure, we humans are better off than ever in health, poverty, science and literacy. Please consider adding good news section to showcase positive development in science, health and other sectors to broaden perspectives. Second, the policy discussions on NL Hafta Charcha feel lopsided. Old policies get judged by their best days. New ones get judged by worst case scenarios. Every policy has trade-offs and both deserve equal scrutiny. Guests often arrive with predictable positions and can't articulate both sides, creating bias rather than nuance. These patterns reinforce each other. NL can set higher bar for better discourse. See Pulyabazi podcast. I also read the piece on Nitin Kamath. I have never read a more pointless article masquerading as journalism.
Hey, I don't agree.
There's no place among the excellent work that NL has done over the years.
I don't agree at all.
Now these are letters that came to South Central.
Right.
Shreyashi Chatterjee says, "Dear Dhanya, congratulations on South Central's 50th episode. I remember being super excited about South Central's launch back when you discussed it with Abhinandan and team at NL Hafta. My weekends are incomplete without it, and I'm glad to see that you're experimenting with different formats and ideas, such as having Yogendra Yadav last week as an expert. Bravo to you and your co-host. On that note, I'd also like to congratulate you on your nomination at Reporters Sans Frontières. And if you do travel to Paris for the ceremony, I'd be happy to catch up or be of any assistance if need be."
Oh, by the time this comes out, it's
No,
clear.
the award is done. So
Award is done. Dhanya didn't go to Paris, so she's very sad.
Prakyat says, "Hello team South Central. South Central is a podcast I've looked forward to and listened to since its inception without giving a miss. It's everything that a traditional news podcast program isn't, run by a compromised media magnate. North India-centric, male chauvinist, insensitive, etc. I can honestly go on and on about how flawed others are in comparison. The podcast is invaluable for being abreast with the events that transpire back home and make sense of them and with a nuanced perspective. I admire the fact that you have a very diverse panel, even if it sometimes involves the likes of a Mohan Das Pai. This makes sure that you're not pigeonholing yourself and the audience. Kudos to you, Pooja, Sudipto, for the occasional appearance. He should be a frequent panelist, and all those who make the podcast possible. Wishing you more success for future episodes."
So,
Yay.
will Mohandas Pai come on Hafta, Dhanya, or you think it's too volatile a combination with having him and
He may
Manisha?
come.
At your own risk.
at your own risk. See, the point is, no, the thing is, calling any of them, you have to be really having the data at fingertips, because they will just say
Actually, even
"Kaja,
when you
kaja,
have
kaja."
it at your fingertips, he just would keep cutting us constantly.
I was amused half the time. I remember after the podcast, Tara and Pooja was so stressed out, saying that what happened. I said, no, you guys actually came out looking very well, because we did oppose him in a lot
No.
of data points.
I'll tell you what the problem is. The whole point, I think, for me at least, of South Central is the gaze, right? We bring a feminist gaze, not just because we're women, but also because of the work that we've done. I think that one episode was a lot of PTSD. All those uncles all our lives who've told us, oh, you know nothing, when you know far, far more than that uncle.
But
All
we
of
got
that
the
came
most
rushing
amount of
back.
letters, and even now people speak about that episode.
Yeah, that's true.
I think one of the dangers of getting people like him, and I remember I experienced that when once we called Sandeep Bamzai, who, back then his politics, I think it's I don't know, I don't see much of him anymore, but it's changed. They are so used to appearing on the Arnab and Times Now kind of panels. When they come here, they just try to outshout everybody. It's not a conversation, because that is what they're used to. So it kind of defeats the purpose of Hafta, where you say your shit, but then someone else will get to say their shit as well. You can't drown out each other by just increasing your volume. And that, I
you
think...
disagree respectfully with each other. You don't call them names. You don't just.
Oh,
turn
yeah, he
your
did that.
face.
Yeah.
He called us names.
And I think that is because they're very used to that. So their default setting has become something. But I have an idea which I would like to propose here after these emails are over.
Hey, Manisha, I just want to add about the Nikhil Kamath story. That, that's one story where we got like two kinds of opinions. One, people telling us that, oh, that was an interesting read. Other people is like, what is the point? There is a certain problem when you write business profiles, right? Beyond a point, what do you write? This was, I think, it served a purpose to show that how certain billionaires actually sort of write how they're perceived. As in, they are the ones who control how they're perceived, and there is a proper business plan behind that. That was the purpose of the story, and I think he did that.
And also, I think it's not like he's hated by people.
It's not a profile on Mohandas Pai.
Yeah, he doesn't have. And what we realized is the life that he's led, it's not that colorful. Apart from the fact that he's made like lots and lots of money, it's been fairly uneventful. It's not like there were huge ups and downs and all of that for us to report on. So, yeah.
So I had a suggestion, and I don't know, will it become too volatile, too polarizing? But, because this letter mentioned it about the North Indian chauvinism, etc. I'd done a show back in, I think, 2010-11 for Fox Traveler called What's with Indian Men, with Sugandha and Indrani Das Gupta, who was supermodel of international fame at the time. And we traveled to 10 cities across 10 states, exploring the gender dynamic. It was not really done in any deep sociological way. It was a travel show, so it was very superficial and shallow. But that was the whole pitch, that, these two very independent, one supermodel, Sugandha, I think, was a VJ, actor, singer, etc. And I remember going to Kerala, and when we were talking about, Punjab and the chauvinism there, and they said that the two men we featured, their wives, we were having lunch later once we were shooting, they said, we don't buy this whole chauvinism and North Indian thing. Be a Mallu woman, come sit in our shoes, and it is as good and bad, as good or bad as that. Men across the country are as chauvinistic. Now, and then I was just discussing yesterday at home with my mother, who's Tamilian, and I was saying Mahmood would have been cancelled today, with his rendition in Padosan of that. But I found it funny, and I am half Tamil. My mother found it funny. She's full Tamil.
Mahmood, by the way, is from Bangalore.
Oh, is he? Okay. I thought he's Hyderabadi.
No. He lived most of his life in Bangalore. That is why Lucky Ali also has his base in Bangalore.
I was wondering that, what is the reason that certain parts of the country are more sensitive about how they are stereotyped or made fun of, and certain parts of the country are not, and what determines that? You think we can have a podcast around that, or will it become too polarizing?
No, what is your example? What are certain states typecast as?
For example, if someone, like the whole lungi dance thing in that Chennai Express. It was obviously a stereotype, but it was not some sociological study. But the pushback of it was like, oh, how dare they? This is lungi dance. Like, Sardis have been treated a certain way in films. I don't see any protests in Punjab. I mean, like, I genuinely believe, and I've said this, I think certain southern states are oversensitive about just minor pop culture things. I'm just wondering, let me just finish, ladies. Let me finish, ladies. Let me finish. I'm just wondering, is there a little over-the-top oversensitivity in certain parts? Because across the country, Gujaratis, Parsis have been stereotyped in cinema across India forever.
So it's not our fault that they're not reacting, right? That is their loss. I'm saying Gujaratis, Parsis, Bengalis, Punjabis be on the street and oppose it. I mean, how is it Kerala or Tamil Nadu's fault that somebody is not reacting to it?
I have I'm going to try and keep my emotions out of this. I completely endorse that everybody should protest. But here's my sociological explanation to this. There is a perceived power imbalance. For the longest time, if South had not, after the 90s and especially 2000s, become economically so, strong, where people from the North are having to come here for jobs and whatever else, it was always seen, at least when we were growing up, that culturally, financially, politically, of course, North has an upper hand. Yeah. So when it comes from a place of superiority, it feels like you're looking, now look at the characters, right? It's all caricatures.
It's trauma. It's trauma, Abhinandan, of the past.
That is the problem. Now we have the digital medium to hit back at people to say, you guys are idiots with all the things. You are being ignorant. It's not funny.
So it's not like we don't do it back.
Correct.
I mean, we do movies here, they are making fun of Punjabis and Gujaratis and Parsis.
Even in our real lives, it's not like caricature stereotypes don't exist in the South. Everybody outside of the 5 states is North Indian. There's nothing called West.
What is your show? Your show is going to be how certain states react and certain states don't? What is the discussion about?
No, exploring why. Like, for example, what Pooja's thesis is an interesting thesis. I'm not about whether it's anyone's fault or not. See, everything in life is not about, some things are no one's fault. They are just observations.
I'm telling you the perception point of it. Yeah, I'm not saying there's no blame.
Whether others should protest or not, we're not saying it's their fault, they should not or not. I'm just wondering, is there some historical, sociological explanation on those who do, those who don't? We have our individuals, whether you should or you shouldn't. But I'm just trying to...
I want to just jump in with some more stereotypes. One, I don't think all southern states can't take a joke. I think Mallus are very good at taking a joke. I think it's specifically Tamils who get very uptight if there's a joke cracked on them. I think it's a specific Tamil problem. Tamilians and Bengalis are both incapable of taking a joke on themselves. Punjabis are great. I think you can always crack a joke on them. They crack a joke on themselves also. I think Haryanvis is also good at taking a joke. I think if you were to look in India, I think it's mostly Bengalis and Tamils who cannot take a joke. And when we talk about all of this, man, how much Northeasterners are stereotyped? I think it's the worst kind of stereotype Northeasterners go through. And even they kind of can, they're able to kind of... And if you see in the Northeast, while they are discriminated against when they come to Delhi, the kind of things that are said about women, how they look, they are extremely xenophobic back home. The kind of sort of hostility towards Bengali, Bihari migrants there. It is at dangerous proportions at certain times. So communities who also feel, so this whole power imbalance, of course, you're from Delhi and Delhi has treated you badly. No other region other than I think Northeast has been treated in that way. And of course, Kashmir also have some, but it is not that if you're treated badly, you yourself will be nice towards sort of...
No, but also what the caricature is matters, right? Manisha, like Punjabi, yes, there are a lot of negative attributes, but there's also this, Punjabis are large-hearted, fun-loving and all of that.
The joke has always been that the 12 baj gaye joke has always been the...
By the way, Malayalis also don't like it.
No, Malayalis I think are done with the jokes. They
look down upon everybody else.
They're very good at cracking jokes on their own selves.
Yeah, like some stuff, like if you make fun of a Malayali saying Naatil Evadya, they're okay with it. But they are not okay with Param Sundari types anymore. Correct. But Abhinandan, I have an idea for you. Instead of, I don't know how you'll have 10 podcasts on this. But what I want to ask...
One
podcast.
We can do. That we're doing half here.
That we're doing half here.
Stereotypes, that way.
No, but I have a suggestion.
There are many states which really refuse to look inward, right? For example... if I go to Kerala, I think Kerala is more patriarchal than most other states. And I'm from Kerala myself.
The politics is not so much socially very patriarchal.
Very, and sexist and misogynist. So many sections of society are like that. Tamil Nadu, never looking inward about casteism. to a large extent. I don't know what other states have things like that, where, these are they will always project themselves, oh, looking at North India, we are better, we are economically better, we are giving 1 rupee for every 25 paise and all that crap. But when it comes to these things, nobody wants to look beyond a point. Nobody wants to be judged by a person outside. They will have discussions within the state, perhaps. I think that is something you could have discussions on. And yes, peaceful ones.
I think we can look at nationalism. This is all cultural nationalism also, right? People now tend to call each of it as sub-nationalism, which is also another thing, especially people in Tamil Nadu take offense to. It's Tamil nationalism, and then it became tied to larger Indian nationalism part. And I was saying that what is it that people are stereotyped as? A Tamil person in Hindi films is like, somebody who doesn't speak well, who's uncultured, looks very uncouth, unkempt and all of that. Whereas Kannadigas, it's a very new stereotype now. I don't think back in 70s, 80s, there was something called Kannadigas. Most people didn't even know Kannadigas existed. And now it is like, what is Bangalore stereotype? Glass buildings, people speaking English. So very, very, that's okay, right? Because that's a positive stereotype. So I think that's why Tamils have a larger problem, Manisha, to your point of why you said it's a Bengali or a Tamil, pushback more.
But also stereotypes originate from where, like, see, Bollywood does a shit job of representing any community. So I get like those movies, like the one with Janvi Kapoor.
Param Sundari.
Very ridiculous. But in day-to-day lives, which other community other than Biharis, I feel, have most vilified across and to a level where there's actual violence? These are guys who've practically built our roads, bridges across countries. But when you see, and so there's that, I think Bihari migrant work and Biharis in general, the kind of, you will not find that in Bollywood. Bollywood glamorizes a lot of Bihar, Jharkhand, gangster, that language, Bhojpuri. It's coolified now to a large extent through OTT and Bollywood. But day to day, the way we look at a Bihari is still very, I think it's way worse than, say, look at a Tamil in North, for sure.
Correct. Even in Punjab, with the labor, with the farm labor.
The overall impression of a Tamil person would be intelligent, very sharp, erudite, that kind of thing.
That's
looked at with suspicion. And I think increasingly in politics, it's Bengalis. We've had 2 lynchings this week itself, one in Kerala, one in Odisha, because of the politics around Bangladeshi workers, migrants. So increasingly Bengalis are also facing attack. It has nothing to do with pop culture though. I think that's more lived reality.
So Abhinandan, do you have an idea of what your podcast has to be now? Because the podcast is over here.
This short discussion of just about 10-12 seconds this is what it's to be about, to scrutinize and maybe investigate and interrogate and give sociological or pop culture explanations to why certain regions react more than others. And I think that's an interesting conversation. Like, for example, when Sudipto made that comment about Hindi during Media Rumble, I mean, I didn't think anything of it. But if someone here had made that same comment about Tamil, 10 people would have said, how dare you say that from stage? What I'm saying is, it doesn't, certain people react, certain people don't.
No, I don't think there is an outrage cycle like that, right? Jokes, like I personally share so many reels making fun of Malayalis.
No, but you can, if Abhinandan was to share that. But I think it's also because how we've defined Indianness, right? Indianness somehow, not just now after BJP and all. Traditionally, it's Hindi. Anybody who speaks Hindi, I know a friend who's Tamil, who used to work in Republic TV. He quit and ran. He couldn't speak a word of Hindi. In cabs, he was told, "Are you not Indian? Why do you not speak Hindi?" I'm just taking one example. This is how it's been. If Indianness is closely linked to the North Indian Hindi speaking, and everything else, including Northeast, is in the periphery. So that is, I think, why you take more offense when you're told that.
But generally, Indians don't take jokes well.
Yeah, and we're extremely racist. All of us are. All Indians are.
We should definitely have someone from Punjab there explain why Sardars and Punjabis have been so cool about it.
In fact, I remember the Chief Justice of India was a Sardar when that PIL was issued by that lady who I interviewed, that Sardar joke should be banned. And he heard, I don't know why the Chief Justice admitted it in his bench. Such a frivolous, and then of course he dismissed it, but his observations were really funny. That dude, learn to take a joke on ourselves. I think we are fun that we take such a joke. I think it was Justice Keher, if I'm not wrong, who heard that PIL.
Also, when the community is as sort of well off and assured as the Sikh community is, and well loved also, I think there's a certain sense of confidence also that comes with it, so they can take a joke. But that is one of my favorite interviews with that lady. you and that. And it's just a hilarious interview where you ask her about this only, do you
Yeah.
like Ek Chatur Naar? And she's like, yeah, very good, lovely song.
Yeah, I said, how about that? I said, why is that okay?
Like, no, but that's okay. Because she found it funny.
Yeah, she found it, so that should be allowed, but Sardar joke should not be allowed.
I want you to tell me a joke that involves a Sikh, but does
if
not
you have
offend.
a maturity level-
जो बोलते हैं ना, जो there is a part of a story like Mahmood was in Padosan.
That created a lot of wit.
So tell me a joke that involves a Sikh character but is not offensive.
Not offensive.
Like Mahmood was in
I
Padosan.
don't think any joke is there because
So there's
every
no joke that
is-
involves a Sikh is not offensive.
No, yeah, not even
So,
a single joke.
suppose Mahmood was not I'd say Madrasi music teacher, but he was a Sardar music teacher. Would that be okay?
See, if you
I'd
dress
say chakle patte brrr like that.
because see, Tamilian is not coming from any religion. Here,
Achha,
we have come from
hurt
a religion.
You can hurt an ethnicity, not a religion.
Right, so let's get the recommendations for the year, not just for the week. Let's start
It has
with...
to be like,
Sure, if you want, I can start with mine because I really think that these books have not been appreciated enough and spoken about enough. And they are, I mean, and people may accuse me of bias, but I'm saying that as objectively as possible. Abhishek Chaudhary's two-part series, Believer's Dilemma and Vajpayee, The Ascent of the Hindu Right. I don't recall having read two books that have packed so much information and are so easy to read and are so politically and historically relevant and accurate. I mean, I really think a bigger deal should have been made about both these books. I highly recommend you read both these because it's not just about Vajpayee. I don't even know how much he must have read and primary documents he must have gone through and people he must have interviewed to write these two volumes. So my recommendation for the year is read both these. Do you want to go, Pooja, Dhanya, who wants to go first?
I don't have for the year yet, but I want to focus on what I think we should look at in 2026 and in the same direction. This new book written by Paranjay Guha Thakurta along with a younger writer, Ayaskant Das. I just bought the book over the weekend. I met them over the weekend too. And it's called A Controversial Judge. And they're looking at Justice Arun Kumar Mishra, Judge Loya, and a whole bunch of other controversial judgments. I think we, because of obvious, very legitimate fear, even media does not look at judges and the judiciary enough. And perhaps rebuilding a democracy should start from there. If we fix our judicial system, there can be some recourse to all the nonsense that's happening. So, yeah, that's my recommendation for the week. And going forward, let's do more stories, Dhanya.
I don't have any recommendation for the year.
No.
Fine.
I just, it could be for the week. That's fine.
I mean, I'm into crime podcasts, so I am just telling everybody, please listen to more and more crime podcasts. There are so many. I mean, I've been looking at the serial, lots of them. This year has been all about crime podcasts for me. And some of the ones from Canada, America, so good. They just like draw you in. I'm like, oh my God, this story we could have turned to a podcast. And I'm like, okay, maybe.
that's the Mallu in you, your love for crime stories.
The most creative
Do not
crimes
stereotype
happening
us
in
like
Kerala.
this, Manisha. We will not take it like
You
that.
only stereotyped yourself when you told me that the most bizarre crime stories happen in
True.
Kerala.
Bizarre murders happen in Kerala. This year has been less actually.
Are you doing your year-end list of the most bizarre?
This year has been very less bizarre murders, right? I can't remember any. I think Keralites have lost that zing.
They're not murdering in the bloody interview.
Let's just lost that zing.
Yeah, zing.
Oh dear
Okay.
God, okay.
Yeah, these people do not understand the Gen Z language.
Especially Abhinandan.
Especially Abhinandan. Okay, so I just bought the book. I haven't read it, but I will recommend it even without reading. Is The Dig by Soumya Ashok.
Oh,
We had
yes.
her on South Central also, I think, a few months ago. It's on the Keeladi Dig. So I'm going to read that this weekend. So kudos, Soumya. Her book has come out, and those who have read it are saying very good things about it. And it's also very important because it comes at a time when the Archaeological Survey of India has said that the Keeladi report itself is questionable, it's not scientific, etc. So let's see what Soumya has written. The week, I thought Himal's story on what's happening in Bangladesh was a very good read. It's titled The Muhammad Yunus Government Played with Fire. Now Bangladesh Burns Again. It's by Cyrus Naji. So that's the week's read. And yeah, I think Believer's Dilemma, so many people have recommended it. during so many episodes.
Mm.
I really, really like the book. And I think I will keep going back to it whenever I read somewhere that, oh, Vajpayee is different from Narendra Modi and his BJP was different
Yeah.
from Modi's BJP.
So 2 books that I really enjoyed reading this year. One was Sam Dalrymple's book on partition. The other was Manu's book on God, guns, and missionaries. And it's always nice to go back to history because so much of our current turmoil, you can trace it back that aise pehle bhi hota tha, and you can actually see that it's never been, nothing is new. I think that's what's comforting about history. Whenever you read history, you realize that nothing that you're experiencing today is new. Everything has happened before, and that's oddly comforting. My other recommendation for the year for everyone is to please subscribe to Newslaundry and News Minute. This is a free podcast, but you have to subscribe to both organizations. We've done some fantastic work this year. We've been on the ground. We've tried to bring you investigative reporting on key issues like electoral bonds, electoral fundings. We're not without flaw, but the good thing is that we're open to you guys telling us what we do wrong. We're open to improving. We're very keen on feedback. And we have a community of subscribers that we engage with every year through Media Rumble, through different ways, through letters. So it's a two-way kind of a thing. So it's great to be part of this community of people who care about news, who love news, who care about democracy. So please subscribe and support in whatever way you can. And my final recommendation, since it's New Year, is this album that I'm listening to, a new DJ that I discovered, Lapgun. He's from Chicago and he has some really funky tunes. So you can check him out on Spotify or YouTube.
Nice. What a variety of recommendations, Manisha. From the
Yes.
musical to the intellectual to the public service.
The very urgent public service of subscribing.
Right. So I'd like to thank in our studio here, our producer Priyali and our wonderful sound recordist Anil, and who is there assisting us in your studio there, Dhanya?
There's Megha Mugundan and there is Ajay, we've made them come to office on December 26th. Yes.
We've also come.
But just Megha didn't want to come, I think, from her face. Yeah.
And we should not say goodbye without thanking Manisha Pande, editorial director of Newslaundry, Pooja, Prasanna, the reporting and the head and senior editor at News Minute. And I shall not do the injustice that was done to me in the beginning. Dhanya Rajendran, co-founder and editor-in-chief, and the scolder-in-chief of both organizations for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Have a great year. May 2026 be your best yet. And do subscribe. Bye-bye.